Previously, we told you how many of the world's countries are not democracies, but are actually oligarchies, countries where power rests in a small number of people at the tops of institutions. Today, we will expand on the oligarchy and how illusions in the world are created and maintained to perpetuate oligarchical power. Specifically, we will explore metaphysics and how the thoughts of people create the reality that we are in. Then, we will explore how news and politics maintain illusions that protect the oligarchy. Finally, we will discuss who rules the world exactly and why it doesn't actually matter.
All right, start the show.
A metaphysical illness can be defined as a disease caused by inharmonious conditions in the mind brought about by errors in thinking, confusion, and ignorance. One example of a metaphysical illness could be a person who suffers from long-standing back pain that was caused by a feeling of lack of support in the mind. Instead of medication to relieve the symptoms of pain, she now learns to identify and change the thoughts in her mind that caused her a feeling of lack of support. As a result of changing thought patterns, the back pain she felt for years is finally gone. This is but one example of hundreds of metaphysical causes for illnesses in the body. And just like there are individual metaphysical illnesses in people, so too are there collective metaphysical illnesses. These are ailments in the body of society that have occurred due to errors in thinking, poor attitudes, confusion, and ignorance that the many people in that society hold. These errors in thinking are also the primary components of our collective illusions. One of the most significant errors in our thinking is our collective worship of money and worship of the wealthy, as we explained in the prior segments.
I think what you was saying is, everybody want to be rich.
Because of the errors in thinking that we hold and our conditioning to accept them, the metaphysical illness that has spread in our body is that we tolerate an extremely unhealthy level of inequality in our society. We tolerate the ultra-rich 1%, hoarding more wealth than they could ever need. We tolerate the oligarchy depriving the poor and middle class of upward mobility and a healthy and free life. We tolerate that our population is denied the ability to grow past the beginning stages of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
What is Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is an idea in psychology that centers around human development. In this graphic, we can see 8 stages of a pyramid starting at the bottom that must be met in life before a person can advance to the next stage of his or her development. The hierarchy explains that the lower levels must be completely satisfied and fulfilled before a person can move on into a higher pursuit. Unfortunately, due to poverty and inequality, most people born on Earth struggle just to make it past the level of safety needs, that being health, employment, property, and social stability. Even worse, over 10.7% of humanity struggles at the bottom stage, that being from a lack of food, water, or shelter. This means that in actuality, only a small percent of us have the opportunity to achieve the higher levels of the pyramid. Most people will not be able to advance to the levels where one has a chance to pursue finding meaning and in reaching their inner potential and purpose in life. Unfortunately, most people will live in the bottom, what is considered the deficiency stages, their entire lives. The conclusion you can draw from this is that humanity lives in a developmental deficiency.
Everybody want to be rich.
The worship of money and the wealthy create societal illnesses that prioritize the well-being of only the mega-successful 1%, at the expense of the vast amount of humanity that are living in soul-crushing poverty. The manifestations of this kind of thinking result in extreme and growing inequality, money corrupting politics, corrupt institutions, and corrupt corporations that all hoard excessive wealth.
Everybody want to be rich!
Even though we know about this extreme gross inequality, and we can see it getting worse each year, we fail to correct it, in part because of a lack of awareness, but also because we have not rooted out the metaphysical cause of our disease.
Everybody want to be rich!
The metaphysical cause of this disease in particular is our error in thinking and our preference to believe in outdated 1950s illusions over the reality that threatens us more each day. The metaphysical cause of our disease is our worship of money.
Everybody want to be rich!
Our society's unhealthy attitude was immortalized by one of the greatest movie villains of all time, Gordon Gekko, in the 1988 movie Wall Street.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right.
Well, it's a good thing that I vote for the Republicans. They tell the truth, and they'll clean up this mess eventually, when they get in charge.
Because forms of bribery are legal in politics, politicians that will serve the system are bought out. The result is both political parties serve the oligarchy. Voting citizens of either side, unaware of this, are under different illusions cast by the oligarchy to divide them. One side has been effectively hypnotized for decades by the media and culture that one day they can become ultra-rich and successful, like the oligarchy. They unknowingly worship the oligarchy while opposing everything the other side stands for. They are under the illusion that what prevents them from becoming rich and successful like the oligarchy is false external threats and change itself from the other side.
Well, then it's a good thing that I vote for the Democrats. They'll clean up this mess when they get in charge.
The other political side is under an illusion as well, the illusion of hope of change in a positive direction.
Hope. Hope. It is the only thing stronger than fear.
Instead, nothing fundamentally changes, because any fundamental change would threaten the oligarchy, and only the oligarchy continues to be served and protected. For this political party, they are under the illusion that the threat opposing change comes from the other side solely. Neither side realizes that both are two sides of the same coin. Both sides are the system. Both sides serve the oligarchy.
For the last few years, we've been divided, though. Red states, blue states. There are no red states and blue states. There's only the United States of America. That's what we're about. That's why I say you can't spend $200 million on a campaign and not be owing people something. And the next thing you know, they have to deal with the special interests. The next thing you know, they're doing special favors for special people and not dealing with what you need. Education, healthcare, environmental issues. They have to deal with oil companies, chemical companies, drug companies, and they owe them. And in the process, people get neglected. The poor have no advocate because the poor can't afford a lobbyist. The Statue of Liberty says, give me you're tired, you're poor. Not you're wealthy, you're gifted, and you're endowed.
Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else.
Once again, I will refer to the wisdom of Frank Herbert, whose book series Dune explored religion, politics, economics, and power. The surest way to keep a secret is to make people believe they already know the answer. Within the realm of politics, supporters of both parties are under the illusion that they already know the answer. They believe the problems we face primarily come from the other party or other external threats. In this way, the secret is kept by making people believe they already know the answer.
My friend Bobo says that baby-eating pedophiles and Satan-worshipping reptiles run the world. Is that true? Do you think that's what's really going on, man?
Well, maybe Bobo is right.
What? He is?
I don't know. How would any of us know for sure? Do you know? Have you ever met a reptilian?
I don't think so.
It's true. Some people believe Satanists rule the world. Some believe aliens are pulling the strings. Some think it's evil, wealthy families who ruled for centuries behind the scenes. And I really don't know. And most likely, nor do you. But let's say hypothetically that aliens or Luciferians or a cabal of child-eating pedophiles or this and that other group are all evil and do terrible things for real and are 100% out there and have great power. Maybe they do exist, but even if they do, well, they're still just another autonomous part of the oligarchy. You could eliminate any one of them, and the oligarchy would still remain.
What? It would?
It would be like chopping off the head of the mythological Hydra. Another head would simply grow back in its place. You see, the oligarchy is not just one thing. The oligarchy is not one definable group who rule everything. The oligarchy is not elected and never ousted through elections.
Well, then what is the oligarchy?
The truth is, the oligarchy is made up of many autonomous elements that all have the same mutual goal in mind. Protect and maintain wealth and power at the top, and suppress any force that attempts to alter the system. You see, even if these fears of Satanists, reptilians, or aliens or other groups exist, and maybe they do, they still need their power to come from us, and they still need to cast illusions to get you to give them your power. Currently, we can't see that they exist, but we can see the results of their con. The result of the con is to maintain a system that gives people at the bottom as little as humanly possible to get by, as it is believed that this creates ideal workers. We are lied to by the oligarchy's perpetuators, that we can't have things like a living minimum wage or national health insurance. As inequality grows more extreme, the system becomes a vice. People are squeezed and forced into debt traps that they cannot escape. It is unfortunate for the many, but this is all beneficial to the oligarchy, as it makes them ideal, lifelong labor slaves serving the system. And so the poor, along with what's left of any middle class, are used as a perpetual wealth-generating machine for the extremely wealthy. A parasite is a tiny organism that steals energy from the larger host organism, usually without the host realizing it. A parasite can even take so much energy from its host that it kills it along with itself. The powers of the oligarchy have long accused the poor of being parasites on the rich. Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged called them moochers, taking from the hard-earned work of the wealthy, who are regarded as the only movers of the world. But in reality, when you look at the results the data shows, one could come to the reverse conclusion. The oligarchy prey on most of the world's people at the bottom to generate excess energy for themselves at the top. They drain the energy of the world's population in order for the extremely wealthy to have far more than they could ever need. The majority of the people in the world are oppressed by political oppression, oppressed by poverty, oppressed by social and religious dictates, oppressed because they have no social power and no mobility. They cannot change their circumstances, a great loss for the human family as a whole, as the majority of the great scientists, the great physicians, the great social emancipators, the great artists, the great musicians are lost, oppressed, their gifts never to be seen, their lives wasted. Marshall V. and Summers, The New World. And so when you look beyond the veil of what is happening on this planet, one may conclude that the mega wealthy who make up the oligarchy are the real parasites. They are a very tiny organism consuming the energy and nutrients of the larger host organism that is humanity. And so our species has a parasite draining our world, its environment, and its people to the brink of collapse. The reason we don't know this is because the mass illusion keeps you from realizing it. The illusion uses news and politics to mask the con and make people not notice that this parasitic situation is the case. As such, people become convinced against correcting the system that oppresses them. They are convinced to vote against their own interests, and instead vote for the interests of the wealthy. They know and feel something is wrong, but because the oligarchs control the flow of information most people hear, they are influenced to blame their problems on the poor and less fortunate, outsiders and immigrants. They turn and attack those among them. If the situation occurs that the oligarchs feel threatened by people recognizing the con job, they turn up the dial of division to have the poor fighting amongst themselves instead of turning against the oligarchs' parasitic system. It always works because the system has intentionally never taught people how to educate or think for themselves. The fact that many people are starting to recognize this corresponds with the fact that there is more change happening in the world now than ever before in human history. While this wave of change is a great and positive thing that could lead to a better future, there is also the possibility that resistance to this positive change wins in the end. We live in the time of a birth of a new world. As such, the old world is dying out, and so it must turn up the dials of division and resistance. The system knows this new information is causing their long-standing illusions to break down. This breakdown will threaten them, and in order to protect its wealth and power from a class of aware citizens that demand better for the human species, it may attempt to turn towards a more domineering control structure in the future. I'm not here to blame any one individual or group. The oligarchy, for the most part, is autonomous. There is no completely dominating central power behind it. That's because it's a pervasive attitude frequency in humanity. It's a pervasive illusion, top down, bottom up. It's a manifestation of all of us combined.
Everybody want to be rich?
And so, this is not a condemnation of the rich, nor a condemnation of the poor. This is metaphysics operating on a large scale. There are more and more people demanding change in today's world than ever before. And in order to oppose and suppress this challenge to the oligarchy system, they may attempt to move towards fascism and dictatorships to stop it. To some, it may seem offensive to suggest it, but from a metaphysical perspective on humanity's current frequency, this is the result that a money-worshipping society could manifest if it goes unchecked. Under a fascist dictatorship, the oligarchy could restrict freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Thus, wealth and power would be better protected. Of course, this wouldn't happen by force. This would happen by fear and coercion. This would happen through deceiving the public to want it. A better world is always possible, although the oligarchy will always try to make us believe that this is hopeless and not the case. It is possible that we could live in a world where people have the upward mobility to create a better life for themselves, where people can contribute their natural, God-given gifts to the world. A world where the great scientists, the great physicians, the great social emancipators, the great artists, the great musicians are not lost, but are discovered. A world where their gifts are given.
A lot has changed in the past 300 years. People are no longer obsessed with the accumulation of things We have eliminated hunger, want, the need for possessions. We've grown out of our infancy.
They want us to believe that this Star Trek type of future is an impossible utopia. It's not, but it will take an immense challenge and a lot of work for us to get there. To manifest this sort of reality, we all have to simply begin to want it, instead of the current reality in which we all want to be rich. All of this is not to say that rich people do not contribute value to society. All of this is not to argue that the rich do not deserve to be wealthy. To draw these conclusions is to be persuaded by your preferences to want to misunderstand what I'm saying. It's okay that we have millionaires, but it's not okay that we have created a system where very few of them live in such excess wealth that they could solve many of the Earth's problems and free a great many oppressed people, and still have more than they could ever use in their entire lifetimes left over. It's not okay that the wealthy buy out politicians, essentially owning governments, so to reduce taxes, reduce all regulations and accountability of themselves. It's not okay that a system exists that could move us towards fascism in order to protect excess wealth and power, than to grant individuals more freedom and ability to become who they are meant to be. It's not okay that more than half of humanity does not get past the bottom 2 rows of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's not okay that we worship the rich, while at the same time, it's not okay that we condemn them either.
Everybody want to be rich.
Hey guys, that's the end of the video. I just want to thank you for watching this far and let you know that this is part 3 of a 4-part series. All 1 hour-long documentary broken down into 4 parts. Subscribe and like this video so you can be notified when the final part comes out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.